So here we are on top of the ridge where our two stories come together. We're in the area where the first shots of the battle were fired. So try to imagine a cold and gloomy afternoon. It had been raining all night and most of the day before the battle. That means the Patriots, as they're approaching from where Main Park Road is now, over to the hill, their footsteps are muffled by the wet leaves. Ferguson's adjutant, Alexander Chesney, had just gotten off of his horse to report that all was quiet when he heard the first shots of the battle here on this side of the ridge. The Over-Mountain men were here, and they first engaged the Loyalist pickets here. So what do you notice about this ridge that Patrick Ferguson has chosen for the Loyalists?
It's thin.
Yeah, it's thin. It's narrow. There are no trees. It's hard. You don't have a lot of room to maneuver around here. So Loyalists, as you're standing up here in your lines, you're fighting the way that Patrick Ferguson has taught you how to fight. You're getting completely surrounded. As you fire your musket volleys down at the Patriots that are approaching you, you have a tendency to do something bad. Anybody know what that is?
You'll overshoot them.
You're overshooting most of the time. Most of your shots are going high. So the musket isn't effective here. You participate in 3 bayonet charges. There were at least 3 that you go against the Patriots at the point of the bayonet. And they do retreat in the face of your bayonet charge. But you do this 3 times, marching down through that difficult terrain. There's a lot of stuff to trip over. And you can't keep chasing them. You're afraid that they'll sneak around behind you as you march down the hill. So you have to come back up. So you do that 3 times. You're tired. And the Patriots have learned to reload as they run. So they turn around and they start picking you off. Patriots, you have tree cover. You can pick your shots with your rifles from behind the trees. The Loyalists make perfect targets for you. And yes, you do retreat at the point of the bayonet. You only have tomahawks, remember, or long knives, so you do retreat. But you keep turning around to assault the hill again and again. Eventually, the Over-Mountain men gain this side of the crest, and they start pushing you Loyalists down the hill. As we move towards the top of the ridge, the very top, the pinnacle here, I want you to think about what sights, smells, and sounds must have been present at the battle as the Patriots gained the crest and pushed the Loyalists down the ridge. Here we are on the highest point on the ridge. We're about 1,020 feet above sea level. We've got the Centennial Monument here, placed by the descendants of the Patriot Army that was here at Kings Mountain for the 100th anniversary of the battle. So we've got further evidence of the impact, the choices the men made here at Kings Mountain. This monument marks the area of the most intense fighting in the battle. This is where Over-Mountain men and other Patriots are cresting the ridge. They're pushing the Loyalists down the length of the ridge, and the Loyalists are starting to panic as the noose around them tightens. So what sights, sounds, and smells did you think about as we made our way to this highest point?
A lot of smoke.
A lot of smoke. Black powder weapons are very smoky. And remember, it was damp and humid here, so that means that smoke is just hanging in the air. And remember, the only thing telling you apart from the majority of your enemy is a piece of paper in Patriot hats and a pine sprig in Loyalist hats. So you can imagine what that must have been like. And what else have we got out here? What kind of sounds have we got out here?
A lot of gunfire.
A lot of gunfire. Black powder weapons are loud. You've got 2,000 approximately arms going off at the same time for an hour. You've got men screaming out orders.
Yeah.
Patrick Ferguson blowing on his silver whistle. He's also got some drummer boys drumming out commands. They're the cries of the wounded. You might see Men making their way up the hill or fighting up here, all dressed alike with just that paper or pine sprig. And if any of you have ever smelled black powder weapons, it smells like rotten eggs around here.
Yeah.
That sulfur smells like rotten eggs. Now there are a lot of stories from this battle that show the depth of the investment made in the choices to be patriot or loyalist, the way that it divided the area, and the depth of the emotions that are at play here. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There was a patriot named Thomas Robertson who was firing from behind a tree with his rifle. He heard somebody call his name. So he peers out from behind the tree to see who it is, and a bullet nearly takes his head off. He quickly reloads and fires, wounding the loyalist that was firing at him, who turned out to be his neighbor, a man named Lafferty. There was another patriot who noticed some fire from behind a tree with a hollow in it. It was a chestnut tree with a hollow in it. Loyalists were doing a lot of damage from behind that tree. So he aims his rifle at that tree, gets off a few shots, the firing stops. He goes there after the battle and discovers that he has killed one of his brothers and wounded another. Now this wasn't uncommon here at this battle. In the Goforth family, there were 4 brothers from the Goforth family that fought at this battle. 1 was on the Patriot side, 3 were on the Loyalist side, and all 4 died at this battle. Now it's not just doom and gloom here. There are touching incidents as well. A patriot named Thomas Young, a 16-year-old, relates one of these touching incidents. His uncle had been taken prisoner by the British, and his aunt was afraid that the British would kill him if their son didn't join the Loyalists, didn't join Ferguson. So their son, Matthew McCreary, joins the Loyalists. He's here at Kings Mountain. He sees Thomas as he comes up the hill. He runs towards him from the line and embraces him with joy. And Thomas takes him down to the bottom of the hill. His service to the crown is over. There's also some funny stories. There was a man named Samuel Abney who was a loyalist, who was a prisoner of the Loyalists. So at the beginning of the battle, he's wounded by a rifle ball. Makes him a little mad. Well, a little bit later, he's wounded again, and that makes him mighty mad. So he grabs up a musket and fights valiantly with the Loyalists. He's wounded 7 times.
Gosh.
But he lives. Locals nurse him back to health. Now, as we make our way down the ridge, we are in the footsteps of the men who made their choices here and had to reap the consequences. So imagine how both sides felt as they made their way down the ridge.
Okay.
So here is where these choices play out, where consequences are reaped, where the Loyalist choice ends in defeat, the Patriot choice ends in victory. Loyalists, you have been pushed all the way down to this side of the ridge. You are completely surrounded, caught in a crossfire. Patriots, you've gained the crest everywhere. You're up here completely surrounding the Loyalists. Loyalists, some of you start trying to surrender. You see how things are going to turn out. You're putting white handkerchiefs on the ends of your guns. Your commander, Patrick Ferguson, is not ready to surrender. He thinks he can still pull this battle out. So he's going around with his sword in his left hand, cutting down those surrender flags. But at a certain point, he realizes that this is not going to turn out the way that he hoped. He's been sending those red-coated Americans, the Royal Provincials, all over the ridge where they are needed to plug in the gap, to try to stop the flow of Patriots coming up this hill. At that point, at a certain point, the commander of that unit gets into position where he's been called and looks around and sees that he only has a few men left. The rest have already been picked off by Patriot riflemen. They've become casualties. So Ferguson tries to make his escape. He does not want to be captured by those Patriots that hate him. He tries to break through the Patriot lines at the other end of the ridge. Well, the Patriots know what he looks like. They've been informed by either, the story goes, a spy, or one of his camp followers, Virginia Paul, that he is wearing a red checkered duster. It's basically an overcoat to protect his uniform. He's also been blowing a silver whistle, so he's pretty conspicuous. 7 riflemen leveled their weapons at him at the same time. They fired about the same time. Those bullets hit him about the same time. He's knocked from his horse, his foot catches in the stirrup, and he is dragged down the hillside. A Loyalist, when you see that your commander's been killed, you start trying to surrender again. Patriots, you're not ready for them to surrender either. You want revenge for what Banastre Tarleton did at the Wax Sauce? You want revenge for what your Loyalist neighbors have been doing ever since the British got back? So you say things like, give them Tarleton's quarter, which means no surrender. You keep firing into those Loyalist ranks until eventually your commanders regain control of you and the Loyalists are allowed to surrender. This had all just taken an hour. After an hour, there are 28 Patriots killed, 62 wounded. There are 225 Loyalists killed, 150 are wounded, and the rest of that 1,000-man force is taken prisoner. Things have completely changed after this battle. We have another echo of these choices here right behind us. The U.S. monument here was placed here in 1909 by the federal government. This is the first federal effort to recognize the sacrifices made here and the choices made here at Kings Mountain. It commemorates the Patriot victory here. As we make our way down the ridge once again, think about how these consequences would have played out for both Patriots and Loyalists immediately after the battle and in the months to come in the South.